puppet's last performance. It was an old puppet theater, one of those dusty, forgotten places in a small town, where the faint smell of mildew clung to the curtains, and the wood creaked with every gust of wind. Clara had just inherited it from her grandmother, who had passed away under mysterious circumstances years ago. The theater had been closed for as long as Clara could remember, but when the will was read, it was clear. The theater, and everything inside it, was now hers. At first, Clara was excited, curious to see the remnants of her grandmother's life. She'd always been told stories about her grandmother's puppetry skills, how she had captivated audiences with her intricate performances. There were rumors, too, of the puppet she'd created, a puppet so lifelike. It was said to have a mind of its own. Clara shrugged off the stories as fanciful talk, though. As a child, she'd loved her grandmother, and she had no reason to think the stories were true. But something about the theater felt off. The moment Clara entered, an eerie quiet wrapped itself around her like a heavy blanket. The rows of empty seats, the dusty stage, the faded curtains, it all looked like something out of a nightmare. She moved toward the backstage area, where her grandmother's collection of puppets was stored. The air was thick with dust, and the small room smelled of old wood and fabric. There, on a pedestal, stood the puppet that had haunted her childhood stories. It was tall, almost life-sized, with a perfectly carved wooden face. Its eyes, glassy and lifeless, seemed to follow Clara's every movement. The puppet's hands were elegantly posed, as though frozen mid-performance. "Grandmother's pride and joy," Clara whispered to herself, stepping closer. Without warning, a cold draft swept through the room, and the puppet seemed to twitch just slightly, as though responding to her presence. Clara froze, heart pounding. She shook her head. It must have been the wind, or maybe her imagination was getting the best of her. But when she reached out to touch the puppet, the wooden figure's head turned slowly toward her. Clara yanked her hand back, a sharp breath escaping her lips. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "It's just a puppet." A puppet, but deep down she knew there was something wrong, something that had been waiting for years in the shadows of this forgotten theater. The lights flickered. Then, without warning, the stage lights blazed to life, casting long shadows across the room. The velvet curtains parted with an eerie slowness, revealing the stage as if inviting Clara to perform. Her pulse quickened. She was alone in the theater. She had to be. So why did it feel like someone else was watching? "Grandmother," Clara muttered, but her voice barely echoed. Something cold brushed her cheek. She turned, but no one was there. Then the puppet moved.